All right, we are back. This is Creativity is the Cure. I'm your host, Malcolm Moore, and today I have my good friend, KaDee Strickland. How you doing, KaDee?
I love hearing your voice, Malcolm. You know this. I'm always tempted to just call you Mr. Malcolm because that's how I came to know you. So if I go into that, forgive me. I know our history is long,
Yes.
but you will always be Mr. Malcolm to me.
Oh, thank you so much. Where are you talking to me from today?
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis, and I am way out in California. Christine and I bought a house, moved to the desert. We are in Palmdale, and to listeners out
Mm.
there, we are about 1 hour from LA, but it is beautiful and peaceful and quiet here. And I think Jason told me that they filmed some of Roswell out here, right?
Oh, for
Lancaster.
sure. I'm
Yeah.
sure they were always out there, and I mean that is sort of the that nature out there is so specific and so beautiful. So I can understand why you would be drawn to that, especially as a creative person, frankly. I think, being in environments like that really just open up your scope and your mind to the simpler things.
Yeah, I really like it because I can be in LA in about 50 minutes, but there's also amazing stuff going on out here. I don't know if you know this, but Christian Bale is actually almost done building a village for foster kids.
Yes, so that's the location.
Yeah, it's
I knew
about
he'd
10
been
minutes
working
from
on
us.
that quietly
Oh
for
my
many
God.
years, which I mean, if we needed another excuse to love that guy,
Yeah.
I think we now have one.
It means a lot to me because when I was younger, I worked a lot with foster kids, and I think it's
Hmm.
such an important thing today in the world to reach out and help people, especially with all the negativity that's going around.
Ugh, I mean, I'm in Minneapolis, so I certainly have a strong point of
Exactly.
view about that right now.
Let's let everybody know how we know each other. It was several years ago. I was working at
Hmm.
an elementary school called Larchmont
Hmm.
Charter Hollygrove, and I
Hmm.
would do this music concert every Friday called Morning Sing. And I'll never
Hmm.
forget when you and Jason came over to say hello and introduce yourself to me. And then I got to know you guys very well over the next few years because I ended up having the privilege of teaching your son Atticus drums for a while, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Jason and I were reflecting on this morning even because he knew I was coming to do this with you. And I remember because it's like a whole racket when you're trying to for listeners or people who may not have participated in this experience. Where I grew up, I don't even know where there was a private school, but certainly in Los Angeles.
Yeah, you grew up in
So it
Georgia,
was
right? Small town.
deep South Georgia, one traffic light, small town. So you'd have to travel extensively, I think, to really get your hands on a private school. At least it was at least a couple hours away, I think. It could have been one a little closer, but that just wasn't my. I come from public educators.
Right.
So that was sort of always a real instinct, and a lot of teachers in my family. It was a real instinct to stay in that kind of system. And certainly, people have all the reasons that their needs are specific with their children and their children's learning. But for us, it always made me slightly uncomfortable thinking about like putting Atticus in a private school environment
Right.
was just not something my instincts were always drawn to because though if he had the need, I certainly would have been right there for it and support anybody's educational, choice for their children. But I think growing up in an environment where public school and supporting a child's diversity,
Yeah.
frankly,
Yeah.
in terms of what they experienced, it was important to me. And we had heard of this school and the fact that because like a lot of things you sort of, especially when you have one child or you're a first time parent,
Right.
everything feels so important, and every decision you make you want it to be mindful,
Yeah.
especially if you're an older parent, and we were in our late 30s, early 40s. We really just wanted Atticus to not be in the framework of what a privileged environment was, or an environment where he wasn't around different cultures or different economics
Right.
for families. And what I'd always heard about Larchmont Charter was that it was one of the most diverse schools in the country. It was
Absolutely.
recognized for that
Yeah.
economically. And also, what was very appealing to me is that it was a true lottery. If you applied, there was no special privilege if you donated money or you were on a board or what have you.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
we were really fortunate because we had, and look, the thing about Los Angeles in particular, which is where we were at that time, it's where Atticus was born and spent the first almost 10 years of his life.
Yeah.
You really could run the gamut with how your kid experienced education. And it was also one of those things where if you toured private schools, it was slightly overwhelming because, a lot of these places had phenomenal arts programs or athletic programs, but figuring out what kind of learner your child
Yeah.
was something that was really appealing to us. And a lot of those environments had that, but you had to apply and you had to have recommendations. And there was all this stuff that went with it,
Yeah.
which was just a little overwhelming to me at the
It can be
time. And I
daunting.
thought, it can be daunting, and we had a great experience with it, and we were very embraced by different environments, and that was nice. But I will never forget the day that we learned that Atticus's name had been pulled for Larchmont Charter, and it was one of two charter schools that were very close to us.
Right.
And that was another thing, it was a proximity thing. I cried. I remember sitting at the kitchen counter and getting the email, and I remember crying because I thought, this has solved this
Yeah.
for us because he was chosen to be there.
Yeah.
And then I remember going for the tour of the school. And Holly Grove, one of the things that was interesting to me, and because, my artistic prowess is to be an actor, I found it just kind of special because Marilyn Monroe
Yes.
she was part of, on that campus specifically, we shared space
Mm-hmm.
with the place that housed her when she was an orphan.
That is absolutely true.
And I thought, because for me, she was, as a child, just I was fascinated by her.
Yeah.
And knowing that she had been orphaned and knowing, that she'd had this untimely death and was, slightly entrenched in a tortured soul sort of thing.
Right.
And I thought, she has all of that history, but my God, she was such a beacon of beauty and light for so many people. Like just sort of, she was a figure, right? Like we'd all sort of learned of Marilyn Monroe, at least generationally, I think, specific to us. We had a real awareness of her. And I was so curious about her. And I thought, well, that sort of is interesting to me that they found a way to turn this into part of a Hollywood history, certainly, especially where it was located at the
Yeah.
time.
Right in the middle.
Right in the middle. I mean, you were right in the throes of, wasn't that like above Melrose on Vine, is my memory?
Yeah. And that place doesn't exist anymore. And I'm so thankful that we could
Hmm.
be there. It was a magical environment, and I made so many friends like you that I never would have met anywhere else in the world. And it was like this vortex of creativity that I will always cherish.
Oh, completely. And I think the other thing for me, like once we got in and we did the tour, and I'm really going around my elbow to get to my nose on this whole sort of diatribe that I'm on. But
Yeah.
certainly, I remember Jason and I walked past your classroom, and when we looked in, you had a lot of the same instruments that we had for Atticus in our house.
Oh, wow.
Yes, because one of the things that we did as we are going on this exploration of creativity together, you and I, from the time Atticus was born, we, I mean, I think parents are always sort of, whether they acknowledge it or not, steering their kids in a certain direction. But something that was really important to us was that Atticus always felt he had options to express himself. So we had, and my God, I'm going to have to ask you to tell me what it is. What is that beautiful finger instrument?
Oh,
You know,
the thumb piano or the kalimba is another
yes,
name for it. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
that's right. We had those. We had the little egg shakers. We had drums. We had gone to a drum circle, I think, when he was like 2 or 3 years old. We'd had him. There was a wonderful little drum opportunity that Flea's school that he had not far
Oh,
from
I
us in
love
Silver
that
Lake.
school, Silver Lake
Oh,
Conservatory of Music.
phenomenal. Yes. I
Yeah,
mean,
one of the best
so
schools in the world.
phenomenal what he's done with his creativity, Flea, to give opportunity to kids who don't. And I think there's a theme there, right? Like we were very interested in Atticus being in environments where opportunity was provided, not because of privilege, but because you sought it and people gave you a chance, no matter who you were, if that need was there, to explore it.
Yes.
And we were really lucky because we had a lot of that just right around us because we used to live in a very specific area where creative types that didn't, wear privilege on their sleeves
Right.
had boundless opportunities for their kids or themselves, whether it be through nature or whether it be through curiosity, frankly.
Yeah.
So that's what Larchmont Charter provided for him. The unfortunate truth is that school had him enrolled in kindergarten, and that's when the pandemic hit. So our need to keep his learning and to figure out what type of learner he
Yeah.
was sort of cut short and has always been it's been something to navigate because we didn't allow technology for him for the vast majority of his young life. I mean, not till honestly we had to go to online learning during that time.
Yeah.
That was when, because otherwise we had him, very curated, a certain amount of screen time, meaning film or good old PBS. Back in the day,
Yeah.
and that was cut short. That whole tenet that we wanted to have for Atticus was cut short. But I'm really going into a long-winded sort of way of talking about this because I think finding environments where you're not just fostering opportunity for creativity, but culturally understanding the foundation of where people have their voice,
Yes.
where people can explore art or storytelling or music and have that release and learn from others. I mean, I'll never forget when he had his first moments of that school environment, Miss Sabina, the best
Yeah.
kindergarten teacher any kid could ask
Yes.
for.
Yep.
He came home and was signing for me and talking in Korean, in the first couple months. And I was like, what is going on? And, it's because other kids didn't speak English yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was a way of communication. And he was around children from Russian background. I mean, it was so diverse.
And remember, I
Spanish,
really
yeah.
miss that we would celebrate all the cultures. We would do Dia de los Muertos. We would do Halloween. We would do Lunar New Year. We would do St. Patrick's Day. Everybody really had a chance to shine depending on their culture or their
Yes.
faith, and everyone wanted to learn from each other. It was really beautiful.
Beautiful. And I mean, no amount of money can buy that.
Yeah.
That was so, and part of the school, and speaking of morning sing, the parents were invited.
Yeah.
So if you could, you had the opportunity to go in every Friday for 30 to 45 minutes, hear
Yeah.
what was happening, meet the other families, see where the education took you over time. You could volunteer.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, Malcolm, you let him at that very young age take drums and he immediately ran out because I think, well, you can speak to why you thought that was a good idea, but Jason and I were so moved by you and how you connected. I mean, because music for us, I create from music
Yeah.
in what I do as an actor. I know you and I have talked about this. I
Right.
very much utilize that
Yeah.
to craft what I feel through the character, through my creative prowess. And certainly you allow those kids, and it did not matter if they couldn't, quote unquote, carry a tune. They had the opportunity to sing and express themselves and find their voice and be brave And they were so supported in that and supported each other. And then, of course, like, you know, any environment where a child is allowed to express, it was shocking how much talent some of these kids
Oh
had
my
in their little
God.
5-year-old bodies.
Yeah.
I was blown away. And you gave kids the opportunity to do Irish sea shanties, um, cultural music that came from their family's background. And do you remember that beautiful World Fair?
Oh my
I
gosh.
mean,
Yeah.
when I look at that, you would have kids, I mean, St. Patrick's Day was always so fun because you'd have an Irish band come.
Yeah.
Lunar New Year, as you said, dancers would come in, indigenous cultures would come in. It was very sacred, that space. And it was in front of murals, and it was on the same grounds where kids played
Yeah.
handball
Yeah.
or went out and danced or were allowed to, like, you know, blow bubble, whatever they wanted to do. They had the freedom to do that with each other. And that was also next to, you know, mind you, we had one of the biggest school greens and tracks of anywhere in Los Angeles. Didn't
Oh,
matter what school system, it was enormous.
it was amazing. I think one of my favorite moments with Atticus is he really adored Taylor Hawkins, the late drummer from Foo Fighters.
Oh,
And I'll
yeah.
never forget
Hmm.
when Taylor unexpectedly died and
Hmm.
Atticus expressed to me how upset he was. And I was like, what can we do to work through this? And he got to perform drums on a Foo Fighters song for Morning Sing. And I just watched it be cathartic for him and healing. And I'll just never
Yeah.
forget that moment.
Oh, yeah. No, I won't either. And, you know, that was the first person we had to explain death around. We'd had
Yeah.
an animal pass.
Yeah.
So the foundation of one's life cycle was something that we had talked about relating to life and death,
And that
how
band
we
was
all have a
very
life
important to your
cycle.
family.
Yeah. Oh, it was hugely important to our family. And because, I mean, frankly, Malcolm, you know this, you saw something in our son
Yeah.
that doesn't extend from either of us. Jason and I don't have that specific talent as much as we love music.
Yeah.
That was something that was his expression.
Right.
And we caught it quickly. I mean, when you put the sticks in his hand, and you were very honest about it, you were like, this kid's got feel.
Yeah.
And I also knew, aligned with what was a really hard time for children
Yeah.
with the pandemic, particularly, I mean, if I may be very gender normative, boys who have a lot in their bodies and a lot of a need to express
Right.
physicality and at times aggression. And certainly when you're not able to see your peers and other things, the use of that drumstick was such a gift. And it allowed him to have an outlet and to sort of explore, especially because you didn't force this learning of music and reading music. You allowed feel to take over. And,
Right.
you know, I can say the payoff now is fascinating because you gave him the Ringo drumsticks, which, if you must know, since moving to Minneapolis, that kid has played in dive bars and VA centers. I mean, it's been amazing. We have a lot of deep bench moments. I mean, we'll talk about the baked potato because I really,
Yeah.
that was very special to me.
Oh, that was fun.
Oh my God. But see, that's part of it, right? Like, the one thing I will give credit to you for, especially when it comes to musical knowledge, you know, you understood that he had this certain instinct, but you also understood that the improvisation of what drums offered and music offered is sourced not in one form of playing, but in all forms of playing. And you really gave him the gift of, you know, we saw Danny Carey play drums, which I had seen Tool when I was a teenager. That was like one
Yeah.
of the first two concerts I ever went to. So to then go watch him play jazz.
Well, wait, let me explain to everybody, especially I teach at a high school in Van Nuys now, and I want to let my
Hmm.
students understand this. So one of the bands that Atticus told me he likes was Tool. And here in Los Angeles, there's this iconic jazz club called the Baked Potato, where yes, you get these wonderful potatoes that you
They're
eat. Like,
amazing.
yeah, there's like 24 different kinds. And I said to Atticus, I was like, you know what? I don't know if you knew about this, but Danny Carey has a jazz band that plays at the Baked Potato about once a month, and maybe with your parents we could go and see him. And not only did we get to see him, we walked right up and introduced ourselves, and just to see
Hmm.
the look in his eyes when he met Danny Carey was just priceless.
It was priceless, not to mention he is a huge personality and in height. He's
Yeah.
such
I thought
a
I was
tall
tall.
guy.
I thought he was going to pick
Yeah.
me up and throw me across the room. Yeah, he's a big guy.
Well, and I will say this too, like it's funny because Atticus is also a deeply athletic person.
Yeah,
And the drums has been such a conduit to take both sides of his personality,
right.
the physicality, the creativity, and it's hand in hand. I mean, I think we see this a lot with musicians. A lot of them love basketball,
Yeah.
a lot of them love athletics in general. And I do think there is no clearer design of athleticism than being a drummer. And you caught that quickly with Atticus as well. But and I just have to say this for me as a kid, I remember very specifically hearing Led Zeppelin for the first time and Pink Floyd for the first time. And I will never forget on less than 2 days' notice of morning sing, Atticus was, I think, maybe in the second grade.
Yeah.
And you asked him to play Wish You Were Here, which as a teenager was one of my
Yeah.
top three songs.
I forgot
And
about that. Wow.
oh my God, I'll never forget it because he nailed it. And I
Yeah.
was just bawling watching my child play this song.
He was a tiny little guy at that point.
He was such a tiny little guy. And we had a few savant like kids when it came to music at that school.
Yeah.
But, and you used puppets and you were giving them mental health opportunities, I think, because I do believe you channel in that way yourself.
Yeah.
You gave them mental health opportunities a lot through the use of puppetry and music and collaborating it. And for us, I know I can speak for Jason and myself confidently, and several other parents in that community. Having that time outside, masked or not, with the kids, being able to commune with feeling a healing around a very uncertain time
Yeah. It was
and seeing
scary.
these children, it was scary. There were people with immunocompromised circumstances that had to be mindful, but they needed that outdoor time to
Yeah.
watch their children
Right.
express themselves and shine, really, because I do think what it takes to build confidence to stand in front of a couple hundred people, which they did
Yeah.
between student body and their parents.
Oh, sometimes 500, 600 people.
I mean, it was really extraordinary when you think about handing them the opportunity to be bold and to be fully vulnerable and to take charge of whatever they were curious about. And I think that is certainly for me a very sacred aspect of creativity. The confidence that comes with knowing you did something, whether or not you were great at it or
Oh, and
other
that it's
people.
okay to make a mistake. That was a big proponent of what we did.
Yes. And if you made a mistake, sometimes it'd go off the rails and you'd find your way back. And I think there's no greater example of what the creative process is than that, not to mention the learning process. Like, I think, achievement really comes through messing it up.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of courage to do that and to be comfortable with making mistakes. And you allowed for that with the kids.
I can't remember what jazz musician said this, but I would always tell the kids, if you make a mistake, do it twice, then it's a riff.
Perfect. That's
And I
perfect.
also think with Atticus, right away, what I recognize is his sly sense of humor. He would just have me bust
Hmm.
up laughing, and And I think when he would have a frustrating day, to go there and use the humor always worked with him. And that's one thing I really miss about seeing him often.
Yeah, well, listen, it's on steroids now because the kid is such he has such great comic timing.
Yeah, yeah,
It's kind of frightening, and he has a really fun sense of humor, and he leans towards wanting to watch comedians.
yeah.
And a lot of the comedians, of course, are musical, like of course, Jack Black
Oh, how
is
about Fred
is
Armisen playing the drums? That'd be perfect for him.
oh Oh yeah, no, he we are just getting into SNL because at 12 I think he can handle a lot more than, you got to roll it out over time.
Yeah.
Certainly nobody did that for me. I saw it all by that age. I had seen everything. But we do try to give it in appropriate doses these days because I think the world, you got to really be mindful about what you expose them to at a young age now. And just make sure, particularly for our kid, what his container can hold. He's definitely in a place where it can hold more. But I think with music, he had a lot of advanced subject matter earlier than he did other art forms. But then when I look at, our house, sort of to circle back, when he was a child, a very small boy, we had taken artists of all walks, painters, and our house was a disaster.
Oh,
Um,
your house was
of just
beautiful and overwhelming with the art. I loved your house.
Thank you. Well, we would when he was prior to you knowing us. I mean, when he was quite small, we would picture paper and put it on all the walls so that if he wanted to draw or paint, he wasn't going to destroy the walls.
Yeah.
He had an outlet for that instinct. And, basically our house was a giant mural. And we would put painter's tape on the back of things we'd have printed of, Cezanne or Van Gogh or Picasso or whoever, and just see what he was interested in and see what his mind was drawn to and gravitated towards. And then he would go draw. And I mean, to this day, his comfort when he's learning, and this is going to allow me to talk about, you talk about Foo Fighters and creativity.
Yeah.
This will allow me to bring in the great Virginia Grohl and the book she wrote from the cradle to the stage,
That's a great
collaborating
book.
with.
Yeah.
Oh, it is such a gift to any parent, I think, in general, whether or not, your child is going to end up in the arts. I think the stimulation that gave me as a mother, feeling very confident about the choices we made with Atticus, because he is a creative kid. His creative brain is very strong and very willful in him. And rather than that being problematic, what I loved about her, especially because she was an educator and she herself was also a singer, how she recognized in her child and supported his need to be creative,
Yeah.
meaning Dave
Yeah.
Grohl. And going around then and talking about this, the whole book is a compilation of mothers of musicians,
Right.
and not just one type of musician. I mean, it's, Amy Winehouse's mother, Kurt Cobain's mother, Dr. Dre's mother,
Yeah.
Josh Groban's mother. The amount of cohesive, Michael Stipe's mother, in fact, introduces, I think, the first chapter of the book. And I'm from Georgia, so I was a little partial to learning about him and his exploration there. They all sort of had connective tissue.
Yeah.
No matter what, they had a need to express themselves, a wandering mind, and a wandering mind. So there's so much there that I think gives voice to, in some aspects, problem children or kids who have an issue with focus or however, people have sort of over the years evolved the terminology. Creativity is something that when it is in you, it has to come out. And I believe it resides in everyone.
Absolutely.
Um, I really do. And I think, when I look at, because I know that's part of what this podcast explores, creativity for me has always been a deep healing mechanism, and a deep need, and a deep part of my humanity is wrapped up in my need to express through a creative prowess. And whether or not I do it well or I do it fully, I have to explore creative options no matter what it is, no matter if it's trying a new recipe as a family or by myself, or being given an audition where they want me to sing when I am not a singer, or a film role. I was offered a film role once, and I'd never publicly sung except the one musical I'd done in high school, and the character didn't need to sing well. And getting over the fear of that, and just,
Actually remember that you called me about that.
oh my God, I was
You're
terrified.
like, Malcolm, I have to
Um,
sing. What should I do?
yeah. And it's, because you are a singer,
Yeah.
and you are a drummer, and you are a pianist, and ultimately you're very musical, but you also write music and make music. And ultimately, I link that with being an actor. I mean, I think so much of these things are hand in hand. And when the ask is there, you have to get out of your own way and try. And whether or not you get the job or whether or not you fall on your face has more to do with things that have nothing to do with you or your creativity. But to play full out with it, and to play full out with your instrument, whether it be a musical instrument or my ability to use my body and my voice to express through a character, it's all hand in hand. And it's all a deep seated need that I think, if you're fortunate enough and privileged enough to have the opportunity to get support from your parents or from a teacher, you will express it. I
Y-
mean, to me, that's the conversation around privilege, is being seen more than it is financial. And yes, those things are important, and they do give you certain opportunities. But at the end of the day, if you're born to do the thing, you're going to do the thing. You don't need to come from wealth or opportunity. You are going to do it. And it doesn't matter if it's on a world stage or as a teacher or whatever it is, you must do. You must act upon your creativity. And that's one of the things I love so much about, you know, to thine own self be true, in terms of living in your life's work. You will do.
If I can flip that around backwards, I'll never forget when I knew you guys, I was going through some stuff emotionally and I just didn't know what to do. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought of you guys and I was like, well, you tap into your emotions all the time for a living. And at that
Mm,
point, I couldn't do that. I remember I went to Jason and I felt very vulnerable. And I just said,
mm,
does acting help you, you know, manage or get into emotions that you normally wouldn't? And he said something that surprised me. He's like, I'd like you to read Stella Adler's book, The Art of Acting. And
mm.
that blew my mind. And that started to help me. So I was almost doing this instead of therapy.
Oh,
And then, if you remember, I had my own kids' theater show I did. And
mm-hmm. I do.
this is why I was really starting to worry about my emotions because I thought, you know, I'm a very introverted person. I need to be able to express that. And both of you helped me because I had to memorize 30 pages of dialogue and I was terrified.
Mm,
And both you guys helped me so much. And I remember what you told me to do. I read the whole script into a voice memo on my phone, but I left out my lines.
mm.
And that helped me so much. So I want to say thank you to you guys for giving me an unorthodox way to manage that part of myself and eventually permanently be comfortable with that.
Oh, that's very beautiful. And that's very moving. And I am so grateful, that you'd come to us and share that, and that exploration, something you may not have even known you'd be drawn to, Malcolm. Isn't that like the beauty of this stuff?
Yeah,
Wow, that's really, and also, it's funny because learning lines is something that each person does differently. There's so many
right.
techniques for that. So I'm glad you found one that worked. But I didn't know that, so
Well,
thank
and you
you.
guys were always so humble and kind to me. And you weren't like, we are actors. We cannot help
Oh
you,
God.
you know, inferior person.
Oh God, no, I
You guys
don't.
were
Those
so
people are
kind to
not
me.
my people. It's easy to be, and you for us. I mean, it's, whether or not you knew it, we would stand outside of the door when you were kind enough to come give Atticus lessons, pandemic or not,
Yeah.
at our home, and we would just sit along the wall and listen to the two of you until we were banished, away from the area.
Yeah, Atticus,
Um,
Mom, get out of here.
Yeah, no, because partly because he probably knew I was crying on the outside of the door because I was so moved by, his talent and your ability to communicate with him. And I mean, I think part of it, Malcolm, if I may be so bold, I think you probably knew because we were all going through something very intimately together. And I think, different mental health or emotional experiences are ripe in people's lives at a very sort of, I mean, I get a little woo woo about this. I don't think there's any accidents to who comes in and how they come in and when they come in. I
I
think it's
totally
all
agree.
a real divine right order for us to sort of download what it is we need in those moments, especially when we're helpless or feel the most helpless. And I think that you had an exchange with our family. And I mean, let's face it, Wolfie loved you. And he is a real discerning creature, our German Shepherd.
I was going to bring
Um,
up Wolfie. I really miss Wolfie. He was part of the drum lessons.
oh
And I
yeah,
remember
no, he
he would,
was, and
I had never, I had a dog when I was younger, but I've been more of a cat person and I wasn't used to this. I remember he came in once and put his jaws around my arm, but didn't bite me. And then Jason was like, "Oh, that means he likes you."
yeah, that's exact. He was grooming.
Yeah.
This is what he does. They use their mouths, especially herding dogs. And it's funny because that kid would bash those drums so hard, and all I could think was his ears must be crying right now. But he
No,
loved it.
I
It's very.
found out I still do this. I drive around Hollywood and I teach drum lessons. Almost everybody has a
Hmm.
dog, and the dogs like it. When I started doing
Hmm.
this, I thought it would bother them, but they often want to be part of it or they sit in front of the bass drum. So I guess that's kind of common for them.
Yeah, I remember Tom Petty famously had a German Shepherd, and I thought, well, I mean, that dog's used to it. That dog can handle all the
Must be
music. He
okay.
goes on tour. Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I really appreciate you sharing that, Malcolm. That means so much to me, and it doesn't surprise me. I think it's, my husband is a very, very soulful, beautiful person, and
Yes.
he often has just the right answer when a person's in a time of need. So I will let him know
Yeah,
what you
please
just
do.
shared with me.
Please do. I'm working at this high school, and I know a lot of my students listen to this, so I want to let them know who you are as an actress. So, for people that don't know, you are known for your roles in The Sixth Sense, Something's Gotta Give, Fever Pitch, Girl Interrupted, and American Gangster, one of my favorite movies. You're known for TV shows such as Secrets and Lies, Law and Order Criminal Intent, All My Children, Private Practice, and most recently, Cruel Summer and Chicago Fire. You have been married to actor Jason Behr since 2006, who you guys met on the set of the 2004 horror film The Grudge. Is that correct?
That is.
Wow, that is totally amazing. If it's okay with you, KaDee, I'd like to go way back in time to when you were a little girl, and I would like to ask you, what was your first creative memory?
Well, it's an interesting question because if I really think about when I look back at my life, the first time I remember understanding that I was creative was when I would talk to animals and think that they were responding
I love
specifically
that.
to
I
me.
love that.
It's so true. It's so true. I thought I was the Beastmaster.
What kind?
Um,
Oh, I remember that movie. But what type of
he had a
animals?
ferret. That's all I needed.
I
No,
totally
I
know.
mean, I truly believed that on the farm where there were a lot of rattlesnakes and water moccasins and things, I thought,
Whoa.
if I tell them not to find me and bite me, they'll listen. And I fully believed that was true. I also believed I saw fairies outside.
I like that even
So I
more.
had to, yeah, well, I mean, hey, Kate Bush. Um,
Oh, oh man.
yeah, it's part of my Celtic roots, I think,
Yeah, you and me
to
both.
feel to feel the wedding to a fairy in the forest.
Yeah.
But I really believed it. I had, oh my God, Malcolm, I had rabbits when I was a little girl, and I would let them out of the cage. And I say to them, sometimes mentally and physically, don't run away. And I thought they would stay. I was wrong. They, of course, went to their freedom. But it is funny because when I look back at my really, and I was a latchkey kid and I was alone a lot.
Tell the younger people, what is latchkey kid? What does that mean? Because obviously we do, but
Yes, I suppose generationally it's different. That is a child who comes home from school and locks the latch because they are home alone.
right.
Their parents are off working and they spend a lot of time by themselves. Now, the interesting thing about raising a child now is you realize they don't know how to be bored. This world is not built for boredom. And I think boredom, and I remember quoting, either I'd heard Obama say this in a podcast or from his book, but his mother, he would say to her, I'm bored. And she'd say, go read a book, right? So this whole sort of notion of occupying oneself with a story or their imagination is something that you have to cultivate now.
I hate to interrupt, but I
No,
recently
of course.
heard Mark Maron interview Josh Brolin, and he said
Mm,
the same thing. He said kids
hmm
need to be bored. And he kind of went into the same thing you're saying now as to
hmm
why that's important.
Well, I think from my perspective, and everything I've said about education and everything else really is my perspective. It's not to say there's a one way to do a certain thing. I think it's super individual. But for myself, I believe the gift of being alone a lot was that I was destined to understand that I was a creative person because of it, because I was bored, because my mind wandered, because when I was on a farm and I would either play by myself or with my older cousins, I would watch Madonna and go out on the farm and try to do Lucky Star's dance routine in a music video.
I love
I
that.
watched The Color Purple and could recite scenes from that movie because I was so moved by that film.
Yeah, yeah.
And those fields reminded me of the fields that I was picking tobacco in as a
Right,
kid.
right.
So, and I remember being the driver of the tractor because when I picked tobacco as a child, which was something our family had sort of done for many generations,
Right.
that was something I was the last generation. But the age of 8, I was driving a tractor and I was sitting there in the sun alone with my thoughts,
Wow.
thinking about movies, thinking about things I'd seen on television. That kind of stuff was always happening in my imagination because I was very drawn to it at a very young age. Like moving pictures were huge, and it was a way for me to understand why. I mean, I really do think that movies and television gave me coping skills
Yes.
that lasted me for a long time because I was in a very and it still is a very Southern Baptist environment. It was very deeply religious. The way I was raised,
Right.
I wasn't exposed to other religions unless I saw them in films.
Right.
And I was very curious about that. I was very precocious in terms of asking questions. I was always seeking knowledge, and I felt very othered because of it, frankly. Now, when I look back at that instinct of feeling othered, because, as I said, I come from a lot of teachers, you and I both know, in order to be a wonderful, impactful teacher, creativity is a huge part of that.
Yes.
And loving what you do. And I believe in teachers so much. They have such a profound effect on developing a person, particularly because not everybody has a good home environment or has support at home. I was very lucky in that I did, but
Yeah.
I also was a child whose parents were working a lot
Right.
and had brother and sister who were very involved in, extracurricular stuff. So the need to sort of be raised by a village or raised alone was something that I was either with other family members and my cousins, or I was alone. And that did, I was of that generation where I was born in 1975. So television, you come home, you make yourself some food after school, you decompress by watching something.
I remember. And there was
And
only 4 to 5 channels, right?
oh, yeah. And there was no swipe to the next or watch the next episode. There also was an ability, in addition to boredom, to patience.
Yes.
You had to be patient to know what was going to happen in the next episode of something you enjoyed watching.
No binging, no instant gratification.
No binging, no rewinding until, VHS became a thing. But all of that stuff was different. And with that, the opportunity to not only be bored, but have patience and anticipate what could happen in the next episode. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
Have a conversation with someone that's watching the same thing.
Because you have to wait a whole week.
You have to wait a whole week. And with that, you were able to explore your writer's mind, your interest in something. And then you could be surprised by it when something different happened. And I think for me, not giving Atticus screens early in his life was because I wanted to preserve some of that for him,
right?
Because I could see the direction we were going in. We used to never sit on our phones in front of that kid. That's changed. But the thing we still do is we do not pull phones out while at dinner.
Yeah.
And meaning in a restaurant or whatever, unless while we anticipate for the food coming, he draws based on something he's exploring and he wants to do his own rendition of it. If he wants to see an image, we'll do something like that.
Yeah.
But that's something we still uphold and is important to us. Now we watch television shows while we eat dinner and we talk about the story. So it's evolved because he's older, his container can hold it differently, but we still try before we even turn on the show to hear about each other's days and share. And that is, to me, a form of storytelling and connecting and keeping that aspect of humanity and empathy going in our family. Because I think you don't know what's going on with another person unless there's an open dialogue. And I do also believe that's a part of being creative, because if something is happening, to your point, in your life and you feel stuck, having a conversation with someone allows you to create a strategy for changing that. And I think silence in boredom is an opportunity to explore ideas, but also being open to someone's vulnerability and discussing very openly what's going on is something we still are having the privilege to do as a family because we want it. And we sort of, as parents, I suppose, an aspect of demanding that we connect is something that so far we've still got to hold on, because I need it as much as I think my kid does. And it's something I'm grateful for. He feels open and available to speak with us. And I think that's not by accident. And that's something that, though I had it and still have it with my parents, my entire makeup is quite different than theirs in terms of what my politics are. The fortune I've had of being able to travel the world is quite different than them because they haven't really traveled the world. So I've had the opportunity to see things and expose myself to things that's a little different, but they've always supported it, which is wonderful. And what makes me othered or my point of view othered, they're still curious about. They may not agree with it, but they're curious about it. And that to me is the real sauce in terms of relational stuff that we can give each other as people, that I think is a little bit of a missing ingredient right now. And
Yes.
certainly as an actor, you know, the business that I'm in has changed. It's unrecognizable in so many ways.
Right.
I was a student. I took technique very seriously. The one I utilize, I can get into my education a little bit if you
Yeah, absolutely.
want to. You know, I went to an arts conservatory. I was fortunate enough to have a full ride to the University of Georgia, and they had a good theater program, but I knew I needed to get out
Yeah.
of that state in order, meaning the state of Georgia, in order to really feel I could express myself fully and explore what other states in the world and the country had to offer me. I just knew I had wanderlust. And I was really lucky as a teenager because I had been involved in the Governor's Honors Program. And that was a program where you could specialize in a certain area, whether it be math or visual arts or theater. They chose a handful of kids in each area to go, and I think it was a 6-week program at a university there that was Valdosta at the time, which was not far from where my creative mountain Joanne Woodward was born. I think born in Thomasville, certainly lived a good part of her life there.
Yeah.
But she is a legend and was one of the first people that I saw not only succeed as an artist, but get out of Georgia. And there was a lot of that when I was a kid. Like Julia Roberts had certainly struck a chord with people, Holly Hunter, Ossie Davis, all these great theater people and actors left Georgia. And I
Right.
thought, well, okay, and REM's from Georgia, and
Yeah.
they're doing amazing things, you know. So, like, I had all these sort of like examples. If you can get out and see the world, and that's gonna sort of fuel you. I knew it. It was just an instinct in me.
Right.
So when I was at this program, I auditioned to get in after I'd done my first high school play, which was a complete fluke that I auditioned for a play. I had no idea that this was what I was going to do in life. I did that to round out my college resume, honestly, because I had sports, I had academics, I was student council, this and that. I was in all these different things, but I didn't have a quote unquote, you know, art thing to round out and make me look like a well-rounded person. The first play I did was called Juvie, and it was about a juvenile delinquent's retention center, and it had a pyromaniac. It had my character had been involved in a hit and run, and she was like a high achieving student and had killed a child accidentally and was just devastated by this event and very introverted. And it's funny because when I think about it, I consider myself, if I'm really talking about how I see myself, as an introverted extrovert.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of a common theme with a lot of people that do my profession.
I can understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's something about expressing myself by walking in the shoes of someone else that is really great for me and really important to me. So, you know, that is fulfilled by what I do, but I didn't know this was my instinct, even though I talked to the animals and the fairies. I didn't know
If I
that
could
this was
talk to the
gonna,
animals, that's a good song.
I mean, there you go. Well, you write it and you can also sing it. Um, but you know, I mean, it is funny when you talk about creativity, the things that you don't know about yourself until you know them, until you try them.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget because I sat on the stage and I had never been on a stage like that. You know, I'd been in like the church nativity just standing there. I didn't
Right.
really do anything as a kid.
Right.
But that was as close to performance as anything or being on a stage as I had done. And when I sat there and spoke these words from the play, I remember crying. I remember something being unlocked in me and being very shocked by it.
Yeah.
And I got the part. And it wasn't the flashiest role in the show. The pyromaniac was for obvious reasons. She was a rebel and she was kind of hot and all that stuff, pun intended. But I learned something about myself that day, and then that was it. And then I think the big cherry on top was when we did the one act play competition, and my parents came to see it and my mother cried, and she was a real tough customer, not very emotionally expressive through tears as I saw her and
Yeah.
experienced her. And that was it. That was like, that did it. Because I thought, well, if I can move her, what else am I capable of if I express this? And I also was really, lining up with like, it's like, locking into a Rubik's Cube or a puzzle when the piece fits, that's it. Like you just know. And that's what it was for me. And then, eventually I went and did this governor's school, and I met one of the other kids, and she was a year older than me. So she was looking at colleges. And there were a couple I'd read about, and my parents were absolutely clear that I was not going to New York or Los Angeles out of high school. So I was like, okay, well, what other good art schools are there? There were a lot of wonderful ones all over this country. I mean, an embarrassment of riches, but there was one school that my girlfriend got into who lived in the dorm hallway with me, and I was amazed by her talent. And she was going to this place called the University of the Arts. That was in Philadelphia, so I knew it was further away. It was close to New York, and if I really wanted to, eventually I could take the train to New York and see Broadway shows and that kind of thing.
Can I ask you
But
where was it in Philly? Because we lived there for 2 years. I'm curious.
Broad Street, it was right in the heart of it. It was in
Wow.
walking distance of Billie Holiday's apartment. You know where I'm
Wow.
talking about.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
beautiful
so it was
paintings
right
on the
there.
buildings there.
Yeah, and the thing about it was, unlike all these other schools, the city was the campus.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought that was incredible. Sadly, the school closed after 150 years because the pandemic just
Oh,
destroyed so much for that school and that program. And when I was in it, it was a very different program than I eventually became. It's kind of ironic. So when I went there, it was a really special time to be at that school because the gentleman who oversaw it, this guy, Paul Berman, I mean, he was a deep bench of who he'd worked with, and he had spent a lot of time, I believe, at the Public, and he was friends with David Rabe. So David Rabe came and workshopped a play with us. Camille Paglia was a teacher there for this class called Women in Sex Roles. So I was
wow.
able to like
That's
sort of,
amazing.
yeah, wed together, okay, how have women been perceived in art? And how does that affect the characters I'm learning about in these plays? We built our own sets. We did, I had a teacher, Toby Zenman, who was phenomenal. She taught this class, Has Modernism Failed? So you had an opportunity. And for me, coming from deep South religious Georgia, I didn't even know what modernism was.
Yeah.
I knew I loved art, but, I remember going to the museum there, and yes, these are the stairs that Rocky ran up and all of that, but it's also Duchamp, and you could go in and see these amazing works of art.
Yeah.
And I learned at that time that paintings and music would help me craft a character. And if I had an image of a certain artist rendering of a woman's eyes, I could look at that and know that when I say this line of dialogue, that visual comes into me and I feel into whatever that expressed to me through that visual medium. And then
Interesting.
if I listen to Tori Amos sing this song,
Yeah.
and I know that in this moment, there is a result to explore a person's emotional reality. Well,
Right.
this song always elicits that in me. And it haunts me in this way. Perhaps I'll listen to that song before I do the scene,
That's
or
fascinating.
whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a real calibration for me creatively the school at the time, I studied commedia dell'arte. I studied modern dance, stage combat. I fought with swords. We had to, if you were getting certified in stage combat, you had to do your own scene to create the opportunity to pick up a broadsword, a rapier and dagger, and unarmed, if those were the things you were getting certified in.
Right.
Those were the things I wanted to get certified in. So
So
a lot of
you're
people would
telling
take,
me if you ever get to be in a Star Wars movie or TV show, you're ready to go with a lightsaber.
baby, my whole life, I did do this movie where I had to chop the head off of a snake, and I knew how to swing the machete. What can I tell you? I had great form. But I bring this up because it is funny, creativity, what the ask is sometimes. A
Yeah.
lot of people did Taming of the Shrew because it was a wonderful conduit to stage combat. Shakespeare is. But my partner and I, this wonderful gal from Manchester, we thought it'd be so fun to do Whatever Happened to Baby Jane and do fight sequences based on that.
Wow.
So I'll never forget, I dressed in Mary Jane's to do my fight and did the song that Betty Davis does, and I wheel her out in the wheelchair. God, I haven't thought about this in 100 years, Malcolm. This is bananas. And I placed the platter for anyone who's not seen the film. I think she tries to feed her like, a dead rat or something. It's bananas. It's such camp and hilarious. But we thought, wouldn't that be amazing if I wheel you out, put the plate down, you throw the dead rat and the plate, the silver platter, and you get up and you pick up a sword and come at me. It was just so absurd.
Wow.
And so fun. And we got certified, but we wrote that thing. And when I look back, we were basically doing a bit.
Yeah.
It was like sketch comedy
Yeah.
in order to pick up a sword. It was so absurd.
Physicality.
And
Yeah.
physicality and all that stuff fed into a story that we were writing. And I did sing and dance. When I look back at it, it was a very pure creative experience to do something that the end game was very specific. I wanted my degree in this. I wanted to be certified. So if I was ever asked to do something, I could do it no matter what the role asked of me.
Yeah.
Plus, it was a real confidence thing. And look, I had a sword poke through my pants. It's scary, but it was something that, you did.
Put that in your
and it was a
resume.
part of, I had a sword poke through my pants. Yeah. The stories are endless, but that was a real opportunity to explore my creativity in a way that, frankly, when I look back on it, I didn't judge anything. And that was kind of what's so great as you get into the business aspect of what is required of people in my profession.
Yeah.
Permission gets very slim unless you are the arbiter of it. And I think, with YouTube and people exploring their creativity through that rather than necessarily being educated formally or learning in the theater and things like that, that's all very different now.
You're almost saying that it's integral to almost imagine yourself as a vaudeville artist. Those performers, they had to be able to sing, dance, play an instrument, do all kinds of skills. And we don't want to have that lost on the actors of today because your opportunities really open up the more you can do, right?
Well, I'll tell you, I was on set with a young actress, a really incredibly talented one. And I was working at the time with a lot of young actors. And, in between takes or setups, they would be on their phones quite a lot. And at one point, I remember, just out of curiosity, I was asking them about what their favorite movies were and things like that, because I wanted to know, like, what are these kids all about? Now that I'm playing a mom,
Right.
what is their interest? Like, because I was hearing a lot about certain kids on the set were like, well, you can't do more than 3 things on Instagram in a day. That's the rules. And I was like, I don't even know what. But, and I'm terrible with social media. It's just not inherently my gift, shall we say. But I do think it can be a really positive thing when used with mindfulness. But I was also really curious about why that was a top priority. So I started talking to them, like, what are your favorite movies? You guys are going to the movies this weekend. What are you seeing?
Yeah.
And this particular actress who I really respect was not educated about Jane Fonda. And one of the other people was like, who's Jane Fonda? And I thought, oh my
Yeah.
God, how do you not know? And I thought, don't judge this. Use it as an opportunity to give them a gift.
Yeah.
Because she is, by all accounts, one of the longest working professional actors in our industry.
And
At her
still,
age,
yeah.
like Carol Burnett,
Yeah.
they're still doing it. And I think Carol Burnett may have only just retired recently in her 90s. June
Well,
Squibb, all these different people, it's remarkable how important it is to note the long game of an artist. Because when you stop making it about that need that must be fulfilled, and it doesn't matter. I mean, I remember jumping forward a bit after I graduated college, I moved to New York and really decided that I thought studying still, continuing my studies was important for me. I wanted, because in college, I studied everything from Stanislavski and method and Meisner and commedia and all these different things. Like, it ran the gamut. There was
yeah.
no one way to do it, which I thought was very important and really extraordinary when you think about it, because it teaches you, you find your way in. And it gives you flexibility, because you're going to work, if you do my profession, with people that have a lot of different ways of getting to the work.
Yeah.
And a lot of different personalities. There's not, again, one way of doing it. And for me personally, flexibility in my own creativity is super huge. And yet, I wanted to have something more specific and reliable. So I went to Meisner
Right.
training, and I did that with this exquisite human being, Maggie Flanagan, who I'm still very close with and still lean into. But that method of training is deeply important, because it is all reliant on your creativity
Right.
and imaginary circumstances. And for me, that's more sustainable and dependable. And it just right there puts me right into my imagination. I have access to any type of person and any type of experience because it's my imagination. And that, to me, if you consider what actually gets you a job in the long run, it's your own voice.
Yeah.
Because no one can do it the way you do it. And I'll tell you, Malcolm, when I see people who get jobs that I don't, I am immediately clear that what I had to offer is a different idea.
Yeah.
And it was solely mine. And I was doing it because that's who I am and how I express. And what they did was the missing piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Or for whatever reason they got the job. That's their journey, not mine. And it really does allow you to have agency over your creativity when you understand that, and when you take away the upset of not getting a role. Because, I mean, look, at the end of the day, more often than not, you don't get the job. That is just the truth. And my medium is very different than yours, because you can, if you wake up one day, just go, I'm going to write a piece of music.
Right.
Now, you can go play that music in public, on the street,
Right.
on the stage. I can memorize something I've written, sure, but I'm not a writer, and I'm okay with that. I admire anybody who creates their own content. And there are times when I do it, and I'm not saying that I'm not a writer. I can't become one if I decide to explore that part of my person, but my love and my instincts and what I want to do as an actor is lift someone else's language. I mean, to
Yeah.
me, that's what I love. The ability to step into a character and give my offering that someone else has written, especially when you think about theater and you think about the most notable plays, Hamlet or Streetcar Named Desire, all these great works that you see so many people, you can go online and see so many people do these particular characters, either in film or in stage productions that have been, you have access to online now. Jessica Lange is not the same as Vivian Leigh when she does Blanche Dubois. It's a
Right.
complete
Right.
different personality. Or Jessica Tandy's, if
Yeah.
you read how she originated that role, what she did with it. I mean, there's a whole book that Kate Blanchett and all these different people participated in about the character of Blanche Dubois
Yeah.
and how it's been played differently. That to me is an extraordinary thing to know and have access to, because it just means there's no right way to do something. And that to me is a way to problem solve. And that can go hand in hand with anything, whether it be, I mean, you think about when you're on a film or television set and you have a cinematographer, those guys have to have a very scientific and mathematical brain as well,
Yeah.
because they're filtering light, they're creating the image, and they're lighting it. And if you have people with two very different skin tones, you have to understand how to light two different skin tones in one frame.
Right.
That takes a very analytical brain as well as creative
It's
brain.
very challenging. I don't think people
Very
realize.
challenging.
I think a recent show I saw that the cinematography blew me away. Doing exactly that was Welcome to Derry, which is a prequel
Oh, yeah, I
to the
haven't seen
movie
it.
It. And oh my God, the
Hmm.
cinematography is beautiful. But one thing about that movie is they have so many people of extremely different skin tones. And I often wonder about
Hmm.
that. I'm glad that you brought that up.
Oh, it's amazing. And it's really masterful when you can do that. And I've worked, I mean, my God, Lex Dupont, I worked with that guy. He did Private Practice, which was a medical drama.
Yeah.
So, and he also did Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
And my God, did I pick his brain
Yeah.
about Twin Peaks, because that is one of my all times. I think David Lynch, obviously being the filmmaker and the writer he was, on top of that, just a beautiful visual artist,
Absolutely.
and musician. I mean, the guy was, I mean,
A little bit of everything.
one of a little bit of everything. And I think real creatives are, whether or not you can do it, if you can appreciate it and have the courage to explore it. That to me is what interests me.
Let me ask you a very serious question. Do you think creativity could be implemented in curing people or maybe just helping people that have mental health struggles such as depression or anxiety? Any specific insight on that?
I mean, I know that studies have been done and proven that to be true. I can say for myself, it is 100% true.
Yeah.
I think, again, I definitely learned coping skills from things I saw in films.
Yeah.
And when people weren't around to, therapy wasn't something I explored until I was much older, until I was a young adult in my 20s. And I still, to this day, I've been doing therapy on and off for 30 years.
Yeah.
And I very much believe in it. But a lot of the therapists that I have worked with, in some way or another, have roots in a creative way of thinking. And
Yes.
so they understand how I work. And some of them, I mean, I had one therapist who, by all accounts, didn't know anything about film and television. Wasn't her curiosity,
Yeah.
but she was incredibly good at understanding how the body stores things and how it needs to be released in order to heal. Well,
Ooh.
that goes right in alignment with what I do. And I will bring up a film that I think is really profound that came out in the last couple of years. Sing Sing. I don't know if you've seen it. Coleman Domingo was in it, produced it. Are you familiar with this?
I haven't seen it yet. No, I'll check that out.
Oh, you must. I think you must because of who you are. But I think it's also, this is founded in a true story. And some of the people in this film were actually the prisoners that were in Sing Sing and a part of this program.
Mm.
And part of it is the exploration of how these prisoners performed plays. From top to bottom, they either wrote them, and like Shakespeare's time, was all male performers. So they're performing male and female roles. They are, quote unquote, these brutish men, for lack of a better way to portray it, the stigma and stereotype of people in prison. They were from all different backgrounds, all different types of crime. And they came together and utilized storytelling
Wow.
and performance as a mode of healing, education, self-exploration, and it gave them a trade. And it is one of the most moving films I've seen, but the fact that it's true and the fact that it models the opportunity to explore these deep pieces of themselves that led them to the crimes they committed, their identity being explored, the healing that came with that, the danger in expressing your pain.
Yeah.
Literally, physically at times, the threat that would come out of someone feeling threatened of being vulnerable, that enacted harm to another person because the thought of vulnerability and expressing it was
Right.
far more dangerous than hurting someone or harming someone or performing a crime.
Yeah.
They could perform the exploration of that aspect of themselves and the deep pain and release it.
Yes.
And that to me had such an impact on me. It was one of the most moving things I've seen in years. I think there's a film out right now that's on Apple that is profound and beautiful. And it's my favorite film of last year, though there were several great ones. It's this film, Come and See Me in the Good Light. And it's about the poet Andrea Gibson and her journey with cancer and her journey with spoken word poetry and performing it. I mean, how many people have made a complete livelihood out of that, much less shared their cancer journey through the poetry, their journey with love, their journey with suicide attempts. It's an incredible movie, and it's done with such humor and grace and joy. And it takes you through, this is a non-binary person. They and their wife intimately show you what a person experiences with a cancer diagnosis, and ultimately it leads to their final days, and their wife's exploration of her experience losing a partner and being a willing participant in a relationship with someone that is, for lack of a better term, on borrowed time.
Right.
And yet every day of their life is an opportunity to live their life to the fullest and to love the deepest and to not rob themselves of the great exploration of being human and being alive and taking nothing for granted and exploring their creativity. And if you've not seen it, that is another real gift to anyone. I've seen one of the producers, several people behind it, Brandy Carlisle, who's a wonderful artist, Glennon Doyle, Abby Wambach, all these different people were involved in getting this thing very independently made. Tig Notaro, comedians, athletes, human beings who understood what an instrument in mental health and love this could be. And ultimately, the film is about love. And when I think about creativity and I think about mental health, I think creativity lends us to a very fundamental aspect of love and empathy and giving ourselves permission to be who we are and to explore what we need to in a very profound way. And I think mental health is hand in hand with a person knowing that when they are creating, they're doing something very healing. And it doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be shared or seen by anyone. It's intimate. And if you do feel the need to share it and gift it to the world, you never know who it's going to touch and when it's going to touch them and what their need is until you trust yourself enough to put that thing out.
Yeah, I'm comfortable talking about this now, but when I was around 24, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and I've had a lot
Mm-hmm.
of therapy and I'm on medication. I'm doing fine, but recently Christine and I have been watching the show Homeland, and I've got to say,
Mm,
Claire Danes' performance and her friendship
mm-hmm.
with Mandy Patinkin in there has
Mm-hmm.
been jaw-dropping and shocking for me, and it actually this makes me feel emotional, but I feel
Great.
more accepted watching somebody go through that difficulty. And I can't tell you like how cathartic it has been for me.
Well, I mean, I can tell you, I've worked with Claire,
Wow.
and she is such a beautiful, beautiful, talented,
Jaw dropping.
kind person.
Yeah.
She is, and she was. I mean, if you go back to my so-called life,
Yeah.
I was in love with that show, and funnily enough, Jared Leto went to my college as a visual artist.
Wow.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
He wasn't even an actor at the time. He was there, I think, for painting maybe. And I remember knowing that when I watched My So-Called Life and being like, wow, that's cool. And I remember just being jaw dropped by Claire at that stage of her creativity. And then to have worked with her, she's a very, very, very generous person and very kind. And anytime I've run into her over the years, that is continued.
What did you guys work on
But
together?
we worked on this film, The Flock, where she and I had to do some pretty hard stuff around each other. And she was just great because my character was very mentally disturbed in that film and very unsavory. And, when I became an actor, part of what was really important at the time was that you be transformational, that you explore things that weren't you. And, now it's a little different. I think there's a little less of that. Like they kind of want you to be the thing. And certainly with self-taping, you're just throwing caution to the wind with every choice you make because sometimes you don't even get the script to
Right.
know what the specifics are.
Right.
And if you look at a role like Claire's, what I can tell you, if you look at that, you look at Temple Grandin, she really not only goes to the depths of being non-judgmental about what a person is experiencing, she gives herself so fully to the emotional life. And I've been on the receiving end of it. It's intense and it's incredible.
She's brave.
She's very brave and very fearless and very generous because you have to be all those things, I think, to give yourself permission to do the thing that is asked. And if you're going to play someone who's bipolar,
Yeah.
you must do it with the reverence to anyone who's experienced it.
Yeah.
And I come from a family that has a lot of bipolar and alcoholism.
Yeah.
So on the one side of my bloodline, those are very prevalent things. And what I do know about my family history is that some of that addiction issues have come out of people who did not know they were diagnosed with bipolar disorder. It was before people had diagnosis.
It's very common.
And it's very common. And I think, even still, people get very swept into that because it's a way of trying to deal with a chemical imbalance that needs to be addressed. And they are doing that without professional help. And that's very difficult. And I think something like Homeland gives people an opportunity to identify and get help as a result of seeing a character go through it. Is part of the beauty. And, sometimes, Malcolm, it's the same with music. If people write music about it, you look at someone like Eminem, talk about a journey where an artist is very naked about being a certain thing at one point, singing about things that they are completely against now,
Yeah.
and and not disowning any of it in a way where they don't honor that they were struggling at a certain period in their life, and this was the expression that they had, identifying with a whole other personality in order to get that creative prowess out there, creating a character in order to do your music. When you think about how he himself, Marshall Mathers, has been so honest about his emotional background and history, and not just the way he was raised, but his mental health, his addiction issues. The fact that that guy can take a word and bend it and
Yeah.
create a whole new word out of it, all of that stuff goes back to the mental piece of creativity.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think it's very brave to go out there and let people know you can be seen.
Yeah.
And I'm okay if you identify with what I do, because this is my truth. And I think a lot of creative people, certainly actors, you just want to be the solution.
Yeah.
I find that's a very common theme. You can be a solution, whether you're the solution for casting, whether you're that missing puzzle piece, or whether you're the solution for someone watching something you're in, or listening to your music, or looking at a painting or a photograph and identifying. I think it's profound, the effect that can have on mental health.
It's funny
Right.
that you went in that direction because I had a quote for you that really sums up
Ooh,
what you're saying. An actress that you admired, Jessica Lange, once
oh,
said,
sure.
"For me, acting was always a way to explore emotions, to dip into the well and really try to reach rock bottom down there. That was the most
Mm,
exciting part of it. I hadn't found anything that really allowed me to do that until I came upon acting."
mm. That tracks.
Yeah. Well,
That tracks.
well, listen, what can I help you promote? What do you have coming up? Anything soon? I know that you finished up Chicago Fire. What's next for you?
Well, what's next, is that endless journey that actors go through. What's
Yeah.
next is having the opportunity to work again. And
Yeah.
that is the thing. I mean, it never ends. I know you've talked to Chris, and I know he spoke of that a little bit in your podcast with those guys. I
Yeah.
mean, talk about
We're talking
just
about Chris
lovely human beings.
Diamantopoulos. Yeah, another incredible.
Yes.
And it's funny. He said in there he gets these great roles, but he might audition 100 times, and then the
Hmm.
last one. I mean, even someone like Chris or you, these people that are phenomenal performers, you guys have to deal with a lot of rejection, and you just have to have a thick skin and keep going.
Well, I think, I'll say this. I think about this a lot because Atticus, frankly, never understood, I don't think, what Jason and I did until we moved here,
Yeah.
because it's very unique where we live now. And we did this very tactically, because at the end of the day, it's interesting living in the center of the country now as we do. We also live anywhere we need to. And that was always the case with actors because there were so few things being made in Los Angeles. I was lucky to work there as long as I did,
Yes.
but with the exception of literally a couple of jobs. From the time we had Atticus, we were just traveling. And
Right.
I thought, well, and because we're a two-actor household, my husband Jason and I, we always get these opportunities, and it's like, well, where's Atticus going to be if you're in Toronto and I'm in Vancouver? Like, how are we going
Right.
to raise our child? And where we are now, we have family, we have a central time zone. So flying to Vancouver is no different than flying to Atlanta, is no different than flying to Texas or Los Angeles or Toronto. It's closer to Europe. I've had to go to Europe a couple times. So it's interesting, and it gives him an environment that up until current days felt like the safest place. This was his happy place. When Atticus would come here, he would smile differently than he did. And I think it's safe to say when we were in Los Angeles, our child no longer felt safe and free there. And we knew that the way we wanted to raise him was more similar to the way we grew up, where you could get on your bike and go to a friend's house and be home for dinner.
Yeah.
That was not an option that we felt comfortable exploring when we lived in Los Angeles.
I
It
can
was
totally understand
limited.
that. Yeah.
In fact, there were times where certain things he was exposed to felt very untenable for us with
Right.
what he'd see on the street or experience. And we just no longer wanted to do it that way. And the writers and actors strike had happened, and he was about to turn 10, and everyone we knew said to us, this is the age that if you don't do it now, you're not going to be able to, because he's going to be far too entrenched in a social circle. So you're not working anyway. Nobody is. You might as well take the swing. And if it's
Yeah.
a fail, then you can always come back, or this is always here for you. And, we still have address there. So it's not like that's not true. So that said, for us, moving to a place where it is an easier negotiation of time and travel has been a real gift outside of this current horrific landscape that is happening in the city.
Yeah.
But what I will say, like all things that are horrifying, nothing gives people an ability to connect more and be graceful than a hard situation.
Yeah.
And the community in Minneapolis is extraordinary, and people don't do it for credit. They do it because it is humanity.
Yeah.
And people are taking care of each other here in a way that I am so grateful as an artist I am experiencing.
Yeah.
I am creating an opportunity to fill my cup up now differently. And I'll tell you, Malcolm, I'm real clear about a couple of jobs that would have taken me to a different living situation, because it is easy to go back and forth.
Right.
And that is always the way of an actor. You always go where the gig takes you. That's not new. But I am very clear that a couple of jobs that it was between me and another person did not happen because I needed to be here in Minneapolis,
Yeah. Right
in
now.
community, and volunteering and delivering food and doing whatever I can to make sure that my child understands that human beings deserve dignity and deserve to be helped and deserve the opportunity to help each other and to grow together as a conscious world. And I can say that there's been no greater example than what Bruce Springsteen did in a matter of hours, writing that song in response.
Yeah.
And I have also participated in these very peaceful protests
Right.
and been grateful to do it and felt very safe when I did. I know the ones to avoid because, frankly, being alive for my child is a priority to me.
Right.
I also do think that in terms of the work that I do, what I'm experiencing right now is never going to leave me. This time in history, and the actors I respect and admire have always advocated, have always been there to take what they fundamentally believe in. Like you see Mark Ruffalo doing it.
I
know
was just
Marlon
going to bring
Brando.
that up. Yeah. What Mark said
They
was
both,
just
and
profound.
Mark he's a great person. I've known him because Jason and he were close. He's one of the first people I met out in California, who's just a lovely guy. And I really admire his work first and
Of
foremost.
course.
But I know that he and Brando both studied with Stella Adler, and one of her big tenets is that you have advocacy, that you have a point of view, and you utilize your point of view to make art. And that's important to me. And I know that we've seen in recent days, Billie Eilish, certain people were uncomfortable with her having a point of view. Well, that's too bad because she's an artist. And I
We
also
are in
think
America. We're supposed to be diverse and full of lots of opinions, and that's a beautiful, creative thing.
yeah. And I gotta say, what I am advocating for the most right now in this moment is using your point of view to be an outlet for something that is greater than you and your ego, and about connecting people lovingly in a healing manner. I'm not talking about causing people harm.
Yeah,
That is not something I'm interested in.
of course.
And as an actor, I have had to portray people that were violated. And that is something that changes you as a person and therefore changes how you move through life.
Yeah.
And as a woman, I know well enough how hard that journey can be, because that is handed to you if you are born a woman in many cultures and in many points of history. What I'm saying is not new, but it's also an opportunity for grace. And whatever job comes, I mean, I'll be very honest. I'm preparing something right now. It was prior to you and I having a conversation that 2 weeks ago I was told they love you for this. And now they're looking at the male person, and the male person they're looking at is going to change the tone. So they want to go to someone who's known for this type of work,
Right.
and they want to see that type of work. And so I said, well, the truth is, they were interested in me before. And whether or not I get the job, I love the script. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the material and I'm going to send it in. And it's either going to be the missing puzzle piece or it's not.
Right.
But for the day that we tape this audition, I will be that character.
Yeah.
And honestly, that is a mentality that actors have to have. And you have to treat it as if you're doing it and you're on set and you're exploring it, and not as a finished product, but as an opportunity to grow bigger. And I'll tell you, Malcolm, it's funny, like, I'm really fortunate because I have representatives that see my talent and know what I'm capable of. And whether the character is 30 something or 60 something, if it's a character that makes them think I can achieve something interesting, they will submit me for it. And I don't care. I miss being in the room more than anything, because I think you have, if you're the type of performer I am,
Right.
I love the community of performance. I love being directed. So I can better explore that. But I've been in 2 rooms, and that is it since COVID.
Wow.
2.
Wow.
That's all. That's why we were able to leave Los Angeles comfortably, because we always thought the business was going to go back to being in the room. And now I've had to fly wherever the appointment was. By the way, only one of the 2 was in Los Angeles. And it was the first time executives had been in a room with an actor since COVID.
Wow.
And that was last year.
Wow.
It was a quick in and out on a day's notice. I had to buy the ticket and get there. And it was me and 4 other women. And then it was just down to the 2 of us. And then it was the other person. And, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, that's what being an actor is now, more often than not, to Chris's point. I mean, it's so many times you completely risk your own vulnerability and imagination, and you put it into the ether, and it's either received or it's not. You make a new fan in those moments. You show them something you're capable of, and whether or not it makes sense doesn't matter. They're seeing you in a new light. And that, to me, is creative expression that I must do. I must do that. I'm not going to not try something because it says the character's this. I mean, you think about Linda Hunt being cast in a male role and then winning an Oscar for a part that was written for a man.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that happens less and less these days,
Yeah.
but that's also the thing that interests me.
Yeah.
And nobody was telling her she couldn't do it. In fact, she did it. She proved she could. And she was amazing. So, you know, and I know recently Tig Notaro replaced a man in a film after I think most of the shooting was done and was just green screened in. I mean, that takes not only a creative brain for the director, but nobody was telling Tig she wasn't going to be the best person for the role. She replaced a man, and she was incredible in the film.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's it's funny how if you get in your own way of your creative opportunities and options, then that's on you. But I will never say no to something because I haven't tried it before or because the character description is a certain thing. At worst, they don't watch more than 10 seconds of the tape. At best,
Yeah.
they see me do something they didn't know I was capable of. And more importantly, I do something I'm proud of.
Yeah. And you never know if they're going to call you back for a different part because they were impressed by your performance, but maybe you weren't right for what they had in mind.
Well, I literally just had that. I auditioned for something. The character was a certain description that I very much fit. Then I learned a week later when they asked me to audition for a different part on the same series that they totally changed the conceit of the character. So you don't ever know that. I didn't know that the character was now going to be very motherly in her late 60s, early 70s. And I'm glad I didn't know it because whatever I did in that made them ask me to do another thing. And I may very well get that job
Yeah.
because you know what I mean? It's like, it continues to give and feed itself if you're willing to put yourself out there. So a definitive answer for what I'm currently doing, I'm very fortunate because our business seems to be bouncing back. And that's the other
Yeah.
thing, Malcolm.
Yeah.
I mean, the content that is being made right now as these studios absorb each other.
Right.
And there's all this different stuff there that has nothing to do with acting or
Right.
who gets a job or who doesn't.
Right.
That's mind bending in and of itself. But, I am just open and available. And, I'm going to use that lovely quote to be bold and let mighty forces come to my aid. That is what I'm doing. And, fortunately, it's getting a little busier than it was. And the rest of it is going to fall right into place because I've never not been cast when something's been for me.
Well, I knew this would be fun, Katie, but I've got to tell you, it's been unexpectedly profound, effective, and cathartic and healing for me. So I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, and I miss all of you guys so much.
Well, we miss you too, and we love you to bits. And I'll leave you with this. Our child, since knowing you and you really putting the instrument in his hand, has played the trumpet and had a
Wow.
teacher say to him, I've never hit that note. And I've never heard other students, she teaches college, hit that note. He's since moved on. I've never been surprised when he's joined choir and had this incredible voice.
Wow.
Your ability to help our kid explore his creativity has given us endless entertainment. And I will share with him that you loved his sense of humor because, the truth is you saw our kid. And I think as a parent, all you ever hope for when a child is being educated is that they're seen and heard. And you did this in a time where I feel the children who experienced the pandemic, certainly at his age, they're going to be studying this for decades and it's going to be in the history books.
Yeah.
And you had a hand in giving us the best opportunity to provide for our child and to learn who he was in that moment and to allow that to evolve into whoever he becomes. And you are a direct descendant of that for our kid. And I can't thank you enough. And I can't thank you enough for always being so kind and supportive of our love of music as actors and having those fun, creative conversations, standing around when you had to go somewhere else or whatever happened. And God help me, I think of you because I am in the birthplace of Prince. And we all know that there's fewer, finer artists. And I thought about you so much when they premiered the workshop of his musical here.
Oh.
and I got to see all of our creative things flow right into one another, and that was really special. And you were definitely sitting in our back pocket that night. So
I got to
I
get
leave
there
you with that
someday.
idea. Oh yeah, you will. It's he's everywhere. His fingerprints, just like Bob Dylan's, just like Jessica Lange's. There and the Guthrie Theater. This is a deeply creative well, and I'm very happy to be moving through it and around it and with it because it's one more aspect that I get to explore and, learn a little more about myself and about how to better be an actor as a result of being in a new location and filter that into my work.
Well, it has been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much, KaDee, and I hope we can do this again
Thank
soon.
you. Yeah, well, I think you might have a two-parter on your hands because we went hard. But
All
I
right.
would I would say yes whenever, Malcolm. You enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
All righty, take care. You are going to have to cut this interview to bits, honey, because
No, I like it.
we're
I like
talking
it.
about all sorts.